All right. Bienvenidos. Here we are with a case for cannabis, and I'm here with the amazing Claudia Mercado from Calibueno.
Calibueno. We're here in Oakland, California.
Oakland, California, Calibueno. What is Calibueno?
Calibueno is a licensed cannabis business, and we are an Oakland equity operator, currently operating as a manufacturer, distributor, and retailer.
Wow, so you're covering a bunch of different territory in this space.
Yeah, we have the unique opportunity to be a micro business, and that allows us to be a little more nimble and be able to do different segments of the industry within different qualifications of licensing, which is manufacturing non-volatile, distribution, and then retail non-storefront. Meaning we can do delivery and deliver to people's homes.
Wonderful. So we're going to get into all of that. But I want to take it back because you're a very interesting person.
Okay, well, so are you.
Yes, well, that's why we're talking. Before Cannabis and Calibueno, where did you kind of begin your professional career? I see a lot of different things, but you came from the tech industry, right?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be one of the few Latinas to join the tech, revolution in the Bay Area, early 2010 or 12. And I got there through my network because I was born in Mexico, Zacatecas, but I was raised here in the Bay Area.
Okay.
I was also fortunate enough to go to Mills College. I have a degree from Mills College.
I didn't know you went to Mills. Some of my favorite people went to Mills.
I kept it local. I kept the tradition going here for Oakland. The Mills definitely puts out strong leaders into the world, and I'm blessed to be one of those leaders. And at Mills, I did a 4+1 program, so I always knew that I wanted to one day run my business. And I went and did the master's program with Mills College. And since graduation, I focused on working for startups in the Bay Area because I saw there was an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to see what that looked like. Because just like cannabis, you heard about it, but you didn't really knew a lot of people that were in the tech industry. Yeah. I mean, until this day, tech companies only have about 2 to 3% of a diverse workforce.
Yes.
So that led me to tech. I wanted to be in the mix, in the know, yes. And I was fortunate enough to land a job with Rocket Lawyer. They were a startup in San Francisco doing sales. I have a sales background. We started selling software as a service, which was a new concept. Yeah. So that's how I started in the tech industry, and it was through a referral. Through somebody that saw potential in me and said, hey, you should come work for us.
So you used your network. You had a great, you got a 4+1, you got an MBA from Mills. Correct. You got in there. That must have seemed like a wonderful career path. What made you leave tech and pursue something so unknown, right? Yeah. The cannabis industry. Tech is like a known pathway, industry pathway. Cannabis is kind of an unknown. What made you make that shift?
Well, there's definitely a lot of correlations. It's a new industry, just like technology. It was new at one point, now it's the norm. Yes. So it's the same concept. And for me, I've always tried to be somewhat of a visionary and see what's coming. Nice. You hear of China planning for how they're gonna feed their 7 billion people. Well, not 7 billion, but it seems like 7 billion.
I believe it's 1.3.
Yeah, right? So. But if you have to feed them 3 times a day, then those numbers get pretty big. So I started hearing about how China was securing water and food 50 years in front of, like looking forward 50 years ahead of time and how to secure that. And with cannabis, you kind of saw cannabis coming too. Like it was gonna be here. When I was in tech, it was 2012. And I said by 2020, 2021, we're gonna have cannabis. And by 2025, it will be federally legal. Like this is happening.
Except the timeline is even faster.
Yeah, it's even faster. So, in the technology, I really enjoyed my experience there, but what I found, it was an industry where, I was in the company I work with, I was one of 2 Latinas. Yes. I put in 2 years and was very successful. And when I asked for promotion, I was told to look at the website for jobs, even though we were all sitting in the same floor. Yeah. And the CEO was down the corner. So I realized that, there were some issues there.
Cultural barriers.
A lot of cultural barriers. It's a bit, it was a very bro-ish industry. I kind of lost the passion because I was making other people money. Oh yeah. And I always been very interested in helping my community. So I think from that experience, I realized that there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
And the technology was just not for me. Like, I wasn't willing to sacrifice my personal soul to some extent just for a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, because it was
so you're working for someone else. It's exciting. It was new, but you basically plateaued. You recognized that there was an end to some journey. Why cannabis? And why was it 2016, 17? Well, like, when did you make this shift? Like, what was happening in cannabis at that time that made you feel like there's an opportunity here?
Well, I was able to make the connection. I did have a sales job where I had to reach out to companies and sell them, software escrow, which is protecting your data assets with insurance of some sort, and giving that data, giving somebody access to your data in case something was to happen. And as I was doing my research and getting paid for it, I started targeting cannabis software companies. And I said, who are the cannabis companies that I can sell this service to? And I realized there was only a handful of companies, and I started digging into the states. And there was a few states that were issuing RFPs, requests for proposals for software systems for their track and trace. So, being in sales and being in technology, I said, okay, this is coming. If the states are putting out proposals, it's because they're actively engaging. So I said, okay.
You're starting to blow my mind, because I'm realizing that there's a whole infrastructure that needs to be built around this industry that might exist in other industries, but because the cannabis industry is huge and it's been around forever, but it's never been traced, it's never been tracked. And as we move towards federal legalization, there has to be a whole infrastructure across banking and finance and testing and laboratories and sales.
But it's beyond that. I mean, you have to get the medical profession on board. I sit on the osteopathic medical board. We're going to be approving guidelines for DOs to recommend medical cannabis. And what does that look like? What are the business code ethics? What are the ethics codes say for doctors on how to prescribe cannabis? So you have to get all the stakeholders across all these industries actually to buy into this program, because everybody has a stake in it somehow. How do we... One day Calibueno is going to be delivering weed to the prison system, and we're going to be taking weed, right?
Yes.
Why wouldn't that happen?
Well, weed is already in the prison system, but now you're saying that do you think with federal legalization that's going to take place?
Right. I mean, if you look at the state of affairs of the country, since 2012, we had an opiate epidemic where we're losing thousands of people a year, hundreds of thousands of people a year to opiates. And the pharmaceuticals were to blame for that. And the jail systems have pharmaceuticals available to their inmates. So if you think about fast forwarding the conversations, like, there will be a day where we have cannabis being given to inmates. Wow. And there'll be a day where. Anyways,
all right. So I'm thinking about this, but I'm also thinking about the stigma of cannabis, and I'm thinking about how a lot of people are going to be against that, right? Like you wouldn't ship alcohol into prison. How are you viewing overcoming the stigma that has come, right? And right, there's a lot of reasons for the stigma, right? Hemp competing with cotton in the 1930s, right? A lot of different things. Anti-Latino, anti-Hispanic, right? Marijuana, like all of these things. Are you seeing like a shift in the way cannabis is being perceived as the science is evolving, as more people are embracing the lifestyle and the business opportunities?
Well, I would say, cannabis, the fact that it's been so, the war on crimes has been so harsh on so many communities, there's real trauma there. Hence a lot of the stigma and a lot of the unwillingness to really be open, because it's hurt a lot of people. You've separated people from their families, you put them in jail, and there's just a lot of trauma. So I think what needs to happen is the politicians need to start the conversations as to how we bring cannabis as a way to really empower our citizens. How do we get weed to the lady that cleans homes, so when she goes home, she could get a good night rest, hug her kids, wake up in the morning, feed them, send them to school. And now we have a kid going to school that is nurtured, that is happy. So it's, politicians have to know that it's a trickling effect. And we can do the reverse. We can fix what we created by really being kind and nurturing people with cannabis.
I mean, there's so many ways that regeneration can be done, right? Part of it is through policies that are created that create equitable access to this industry. Part of it is through the taxation and where are these dollars going? What communities are being reinvested in? Now you received an equity license from the city of Oakland. What does that mean that you received an equity license and kind of how does that program work?
Yeah, so Calibueno is an equity operator. You know, my partner, my life partner is qualifies as equity given the different guidelines or things that you have to meet for that requirement. And what it really means is that it's allowing us an opportunity to come into a business that has huge barriers to entry with a lot of local support from local government.
Yeah.
With the intention that, you know, we're going to be successful and we're going to reinvest those monies back into our community. So, you know, City of Oakland has doubled down on that idea. We give you an opportunity, you deliver, you help yourself create generational wealth through your business, and you empower your community by being a role model, showing them what somebody like you can do in this industry. Yeah. And, you know, just give, also the equity has been a model that now people are trying to replicate throughout the country. So
help me understand, because I'm kind of like new to this. How difficult is it to get a cannabis license if you didn't have this program? Like, what kind of capital would you need to enter into business?
Well, I would say the program is not perfect. There's, you know, like everything, it's the first time that we're doing this, like you said, infrastructure. So it's a lot of trial and error. Yeah. There has been some issues that I personally have seen that maybe are leaving. Like this program is actually not allowing certain people to come in and participate. Okay. If you didn't meet some of those requirements, like, you know, there's things like timelines of where you've lived. Well, if you're an Oakland resident, for example, for me, I was short, I didn't qualify, I think, for like a year. Because I wasn't a resident in certain beat areas in Oakland, even though I've lived in Oakland since I was 8. Yes. So, you know, I wasn't able to come in.
So it's about like how long you've lived in the community?
In certain beats. So, you know, if you go back to how the equity program was structured, you're like, okay, who put it together? What were they thinking? What data were they using? And why do we have beats that tell us if you qualify or not? You know, as a Jingletown resident growing up here in Jingletown, I wanted to leave the hood. And as soon as I could leave the hood, I left. Yeah. I went to live in Lake Merritt. And that was, for me, that was Lake progress, Merritt. Right? Yeah. But by me doing that, I now wasn't able to qualify as an equity applicant. So there's been a few things that, you know, I think could have been done differently. But once we were able to do that through my partner, I mean, it really opened the door for us. You know, things were being waived by the City of Oakland, a lot of fees, administrative fees, right. A lot of permits. They're providing technical support for us to really.
Are they giving you a break on your taxes?
Not initially. You know, we were one of the first companies to get a license in the state of California, one of the first in Oakland. And that also, you know, being a pioneer comes with a price. Yes. The taxes were amended for people that started in 2019, where instead of paying 5 to 10%, they got reduced to 0.12%, I believe.
Overall, but that's right. There's local taxes, there's state taxes, and when we have legalization, there's going to be federal taxes. There's still federal taxes. Oh, there's still federal taxes. Do you know, like, what's the effective tax rate of cannabis? Like,
it makes it so that you really, as an entrepreneur, you know, one of the things that's going to make you successful is, do you understand your financials? Yes. And do you really understand how much capital you need to survive? Yes. You know, and you start there. So, you know, even if you're in equity and you get a grant for $30,000, that's only going to keep the lights on for a few months. Yeah. Right? And then you add taxation on top of that. So it could be very burdensome for the entrepreneurs. What I see from the consumer side is it makes it so that it's not accessible to a lot of people in the community. Yeah. Because, you know, you're adding $20, $30 to an average order.
You mean even for the consumer, it's not accessible, because on the traditional market, underground market, you can get the same product. You can get the same product for $40.
No, you cannot get the same product. Let's clarify.
You can't get that. All right. Tell me the difference between the regulated market and the traditional underground market.
When you say the same product, you have to be careful, because one of the big issues is, you know, the regulated market is protecting the public. And we're doing that as a distributor by making sure that we have product that's safe for consumption, even though there is a Prop 60, a warning, you know, if you inhale cannabis, it potentially can cause cancer. But in terms of the quality of the cannabis, the testing requirements is more stringent than organic food, I believe.
Wow.
We're testing for mold, we're testing for lead, for pesticides. I mean, it's one of the cleanest products you're going to buy as a consumer, and that creates for there to be an extra cost. So you're not comparing apples to apples. When you're buying from the streets, I mean, you could potentially harm yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, right? It's like, am I going to buy food? Actually, street food is pretty good, but you never know. Versus food that has.
But you have to be careful when you say, food from the street is good. I mean, does that person have standing operation procedures that's gonna keep you safe, right?
Yeah. So you make all of these investments, and that was actually part of your success early on, because as you started Calibueno, you made investments that are onerous but help give you a bit of an advantage. Can you talk about?
The biggest, compliance is expensive. Cheating is easy.
Yeah.
You can ask for forgiveness later. But if you're in it for the long run, you want to do it right from the beginning. You want to really have the public, front of mind. Like, what am I doing to follow the regulations, stay compliant, and keep people safe?
Yes.
And it's expensive. It's expensive to be compliant, but that's the name of the game.
And was it 2018 when you were the only product in Oakland? For a handful of days?
So quick story. So we got our license in January of 2018. I was lucky enough to have a network of 12 farmers that were also in the process of getting their provisional licensing. Yeah. So we had a supply chain and product waiting for us. And we had a couple 100 pounds. We got it all tested, started hitting the doors at the retailers. Nobody will pick us up because the state allowed distributors to pretty much bring their old inventory into the regulated market, which meant a lot of that product wasn't tested. So as a retailer, you ask yourself, well, am I gonna pay a couple more dollars if I don't really have to? Because the deadline to buy tested product was July 1st of 2018.
Yes.
So for the first 6 months, we struggled. We couldn't really get anybody to buy our product, and it was tested, it was compliant, right? That's the irony. Yes. And July 1st hits, and all the retailers woke up and realized they had to have tested product in their shelves. So
and that's where you came in.
And that's where we came in, and within 12 months, we sold over 1,000 pounds packaged, and we couldn't keep up with orders.
1,000 pounds packaged. What's the revenue that could come from 1,000 pounds?
Well, it depends on all the different variables that could take place in this industry.
There's a lot of variables. There's a lot that's happening here. Give me a sense of what is the size of the cannabis market? How big is this market?
Well, the regulated market, I think it's around $6 billion. The traditional or black market, I think you can speculate to be maybe $8 or $10 billion. We really don't know.
We don't know. I've heard that it's about a third of the market is in the legal regulated market, 2/3, but we really don't know. We just know that this is potentially a $20 billion combined industry and is growing, right? Where do you see Calibueno going? Like, what is your goal with this business?
Definitely scaling the business up, building a great team of individuals, diverse workforce, bringing together people from different regions of the world that can really have a voice in this industry and really grow with the industry so that it doesn't become so homogeneous. Homogeneous, is that the word?
Homogeneous.
And
I gotta imagine, right? You're Latina, Zacateca, from Jingletown, from Oakland. How many other Latina entrepreneurs are you finding in the cannabis space, and what's your experience navigating business as a Latina CEO?
Well, I would say I'm Mexicana.
Mexicana, permiso.
No, it's okay. Or Latina or Latinx. I think that's I'm comfortable with all of them, or Hispanic. But there's not a lot of us out there just because it's not a very traditional pathway as a career. It is. When I told my parents I was gonna get into weed, they're like, oh, because estás loca. Yeah. But then what really changed for me was when my mother started using cannabis. Yeah. Right? So I think that we will see more Latinas come into the industry as they realize.
My mother-in-law has arthritis. She uses CBD cream every day.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we have a shortage of talent out there of Mexicana, Latinas, or whatever you want to call it, is, that could run a successful cannabis business is like we haven't been exposed to the opportunity. And a lot of entrepreneurs probably don't have the tools to do that.
So I love that conversation about tools. What are the tools? Is it the same skill set that entrepreneurs need in other industries, or are there unique things to cannabis?
Oh man, this is like entrepreneurship on steroids, I think. The cannabis. I mean, if you want to do it right, and that also, you know, like what values do you want to push forward, right? When I first got my license, I was getting calls from Canada. People just wanted to buy my license. And I hadn't even started. And I said, hey, give me a shot. Let me see what I could do.
Wait, what do you mean they wanted to buy your license? Like,
well, you know, getting a license is the first step and is one of the most hard.
Most people can't do that, yes.
Well, it's like, it's also at the local level. Like, what are the requirements at the local level? Can you meet them? Is it a lottery? So there's all these things. So we had a license, which meant we were in, and we were getting calls just to kind of buy us out. Like, hey, just transfer your license. We'll take it from here. Yeah. And, my idea is, I really want to grow Calibueno and really make an impact. Like, be a role model as a Latina, Mexicana, but also focus on servicing the Latino community through cannabis. So,
I mean, it's a huge market. 39% of California, 39 or
40%. So we're talking about 15 million.
15 million Latinos.
Or more,
Or more right here in California, and that's your target market.
It's one of our target markets. I say, we're open. Cannabis consumers, you'd be surprised. It's all kinds of different demographics. You get everything.
But you feel that you want to serve your community, you want to be a role model in this business. How do you think this is going to change in 2021, right? We have a new administration. The MORES Act recently got passed. I saw the United Nations took cannabis off its list of, whatever dangerous, substances. So there's a sea change that could potentially happen in 2021 or 2022. Are you preparing for that? How do you think things will be changing?
Well, if we go back to the tools you need, right, to be successful, I think, this is, nobody has a secret formula. Everybody's trying to figure it out. Those with capital have it easier than others. Yes. If you have capital, things just open up for you, but there's also companies with huge cash burn rates, burning millions of dollars a month, which I personally can't take on that burden because I don't have that kind of capital. But I think what we're finding is that there is certain tools that work. Like, do you have the right marketing team that can tell your story? Yes. Are you passionate about what you're doing? And more on the more like skill tools, like, do you have training on how to read financials, on how to do your projections? Going back to technology, can you operate technology systems and make them talk to each other so that your data is clean? Yes. Is that data going to keep you compliant? Do you have access to somebody that can teach you how to write your SOPs or how to keep your facility organized and clean so you're not harming the public? So it's like,
one leader, one entrepreneur needs to understand all of these different attributes.
All of them. Well, yeah, unless you have like a super team and you have a lot of money, you can just hire a bunch of consultants, which people do. Yes. But I think the beauty is like you kind of have to really get your hands dirty, right? Like everybody wants to be the soccer team captain, but you have to be a player. And you have to take one for the team. Like you have to know what you're doing.
And you basically feel this is a worthy investment because you're investing years of your professional life. I'm sure you put a lot of capital into starting this, and you're basically learning the whole game.
Yeah, so I'm pretty fortunate that I have degrees from Mills College. I also did a leadership program for Latinos on how to scale businesses with Stanford.
Elban, with Mark Madrid. Yes.
I have a pretty extensive network in Silicon Valley. So the way I see it, it's like I'm paying the price so that others can follow. Yes. Eventually, once we figure out how to really run a successful business, we can franchise the idea of Calibueno nationwide and really show people the tools they need to have in place to make things work. Because you're asking a lot for somebody to build a parachute on the way down. Like you need to have an airplane already built.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very clear. There is no game plan. There is no blueprint for a cannabis business, no road path to profitability. You're one of the pioneers trying to figure this out. You know, this series is really about, you know, supporting the community colleges and helping them to figure out what role they can play. What do you see higher education doing to support people to get into this industry? If there is no roadmap, but there's new jobs coming, things are changing, what could the community colleges do to help prepare people to enter this industry?
Well, I think it goes back to having the buy-in from the community colleges, right? Is the community colleges board, are they on track? Right?
Merritt College, the board is on track. Talked to the president the other day. He's on track. He showed me the horticulture center where they're going to start their agricultural pot growing class. And then other community colleges, they're getting their folks on track. Like there's courses in cultivation, there's courses, I gotta imagine, in cannabis account. I mean, what you name it, the community colleges are looking to build it.
And I think that's great. I think the fact that, again, if we have more leaders stepping in and creating dialogues at the higher level, it's gonna be a trickling effect, but we need to get people excited. So I'm so happy you're here, and this kind of enthusiasm towards cannabis is what's gonna get people to really fall in love with cannabis. Which then I think brings us to a problem. When people fall in love with cannabis, we're not gonna have enough cannabis, hence the workforce, right? Like right now things are moving really slow because we're all kind of like turning wheels slowly, trying to figure it out. Yeah. But once it's an established industry, like we're gonna need labor to step in and really, you know, produce thousands, if not millions of units to supply all of the demand.
So once cannabis is widely accepted and there's contracts with hospitals and contracts with the prison system and I mean contracts across the board, and this is really flowing, you're saying there's going to be a tremendous need for talent, and it's cultivators, it's on the retail side, it's
everything.
It's everything.
It's an ecosystem. You have to build the ecosystem now. Like you have to, like, the boat is taking with or without you, but somebody has to build the boat, you know, and it takes years. So, you know, for example, like the contracts, how big are the contracts going to be when the BA starts buying cannabis for the BA? Oh yeah,
the VA.
You know,
yeah.
And who's going to get those contracts? So that's, you know, like I've talked to some representatives and I tell them, hey, give me the contract. I'm fine eating beans and rice for a little bit longer, but me going through that experience, let me tell you, I will make sure everybody else eats because I know how that feels. So it's not a, give me the contract, let me get rich. It's like, give me the contract so we can build an ecosystem and really create some generational wealth, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking.
Well, it is, because the question is, who is going to get these contracts? Is it going to be big tobacco coming in and, right, moving into cannabis? Or is it going to be small equity owners like you who come up and go through? Or, you know, how accessible is this industry? But I think that, you know, we need more people paying attention to what's happening here, right, because this industry is going to grow and some folks are going to get very wealthy from it. And it depends on who has a seat at the table.
Yeah, and also what kind of community you're bringing along the way. Like, who are you uplifting with you? You know, like Calibueno, we work with farmers that focus on really nurturing the soil. Generative practices and biodynamic, right? So it's always been my intention to personally smoke the best weed, which is sun-grown up in the hills of Northern California or other regions of California, but from farmers that really care about the craft and really care about the intentions behind the plant. And if my farmers don't succeed, you know, I'm not a cultivator. If I don't have weed to sell, I'm out of business.
Yes.
So it's to my best interest that I also protect my stakeholders and my shareholders, you know, of my success, which is like the farmers that are providing me with their trust, giving me their product to bring to market. And, you know, even farmers, if you don't give farmers a 2-year tax break, it's almost impossible. Like, if you had to ramp up from 1,000 farmers to 10,000 farmers, you're talking about asking people to have the capital ready, to pay taxes while they're building this boat, and then to figure it all out along the way.
So you're saying that agriculture is going to have to make a shift to meet the demand, because not everywhere can you grow cannabis, at least the quality cannabis that the market is going to demand.
Yeah, and do it intentionally where, you know, we're supporting the farmers that really care about the environment too. So it's not just like a get-rich scheme, you know, like there's ways where you can grow huge crops of cannabis and do an okay job and bring it to market at a low price point. But what is the cost of that? Who's suffering?
What are the externalities, the external costs that we all pay the price for?
Empowering, you know, like Calibueno, we paid over $500,000 or more now to a handful of farmers, and we've kept them alive. And now they're coming back for their second or third season, and they're still cultivating cannabis. We're not their only distributor. They branched out. Some of them have their own brands.
So now you're giving me an idea. In this series, I got to go to Northern California. I got to see where this stuff is grown.
Yeah, and you have to ask them, like, you know, as a farmer, who do you choose to give your weed to sell? Like, who do you want to empower?
Yeah.
So a lot of my farmers tell me, Claudia, we like Calibueno because we like what you stand for. We know your intentions. We can trust you. We'd rather give you our weed to sell than some guy with the suit with the briefcase. Now that has changed.
Yes.
Nobody's going to say no to money. Let me tell you that, and I've seen that. But ideally, long term, they want to build relationships with Calibuenos, right? With people that are value aligned, that they feel they're part of a community, that they feel then they're bringing value to other communities. And I think that's where the magic lies. And I think that's how the government should see it, right? Like, I think I was hearing, like, by 2060, 1 out of every 5 workers in this country, laborers, will be a Latina woman.
By 2060.
Or maybe we're 1 out of 5. We got to check the data. But the fact is like the way I see it, like, my mom has worked so hard. She's a nanny. She cleans homes.
Yeah.
You know, where is she going to be in 2060? You know, what is her health going to be like? Yeah. Right? So if we're all counting on the guys behind us or the ladies behind us to lift us up as a country, who's going to be the workforce leading that effort? And how are we taking care of their mental health issues? How are we taking care of their health issues overall? So
you're looking at this not just from one lane. You're looking across the spectrum at health and wellness, at, you know, regenerative practices in agriculture, and you're really taking a very holistic view.
When also the future of our economy as a country depends on this, and depends on the well-being of the Latino cohort, being successful entrepreneurs, scaling businesses, and creating jobs.
Yes.
And then for those people performing the jobs to be healthy.
Yes.
Right? So that's what we need. And I think that's the beauty. I mean, we're doing it. So why wouldn't we make it work? And that's what I get excited about.
Well, I'm rooting for Calibueno. I'm rooting for your own entrepreneurial journey. I'm excited to see kind of where you go. You don't know, but I met you at Salesforce a couple years ago at some, you know, a Latino event. But I remember, very unique that someone here in this tech world had a cannabis background. And so you're definitely kind of like breaking barriers, and really excited to see where you go.
Well, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really, really look forward to what the future holds for us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.